Hello, everyone, and welcome to Love and Law. My name is Virginia Warren. I'm a lawyer and conflict alchemist. I'm also the co-founder of the organisation called Lawyers for Love. At Lawyers for Love, we see that the legal system in its present form uses fear-based techniques to solve problems. Lawyers for Love say to solve a problem, you need to shift to a higher level of consciousness than was used to create the conflict. We say that consciousness is based in love, or love is of the essence, or LEOTech for short. We're interviewing amazing lawyers globally, who are bringing their own style of love into legal practice. And today it gives me great pleasure to introduce the beautiful, both inside and out, Iveta Bales from Canberra, Australia, who brings care, empathy and compassion into practicing law. Iveta's journey into law was a fairly organic one, she says. She accepted a place at the ANU to study law because it was a good law school and she got the grades. She had no intention to be a lawyer, and there was no one in her family who had practiced law. Post-university, she felt obliged to use her degree, and so after a short stint in estate law, she moved into family law, again, not for any reason other than the natural flow and opportunities that arose. Iveta was and still is totally mesmerised by beautiful families, the hard law and the disconnect between the two. She says at heart she is a lover and not a fighter. For a while, she squashed that loving part of her, the part that wonders what the separation is like for everyone involved, not just the conflict and not just her client. But at a point in time, she reflected on the life she wanted to live, and it wasn't an inauthentic one. So instead of throwing her career in law out, she thought, why not go out with a bang and bring love into the law? And guess what? It works. And the feeling of living an authentic life where she does no harm is wonderful. Iveta feels very strong about a slow and intentional life, a life of moderation and with strong connections. Today's society, she says, has become so disconnected in parts, and the temptation to fall into the rat race is real. Iveta says if we create spaces of slow, we have a chance to reflect before we act, to consider, to be intentional with our choices. Yeah, to be intentional with our choices. I love that. Now, I'm introducing Iveta, especially as a person who flows. I love this. I love what she says about flow, because there are not that many people that talk about it. And I see your journey into the law and where you're at now as one of that energetic flow. So tell me a little bit more. I'm curious, because you said it was an organic one. So how did you know? Where was that knowing? Where did it come from, that this desire to go into law?
Look, it was, to be completely honest, driven by wanting to reach my full potential, wanting to please as well. Law is held up on a pedestal. And so if you have the opportunity to study it, then, well, you should. Well, that was a view that I took anyway. But, I did legal studies at school, but my passion was actually in languages. So I did a double language. I did French and Japanese all the way through to year 12, and I did quite well in those subjects, and that's what I wanted to do at university. But at the time, Japanese sat in the School of Asian Studies and French sat in the School of Arts, so I wasn't able to continue those two languages forward. So I didn't do straight law, I did arts law, and I kept the French, and I studied applied linguistics as well. And I was reflecting the other day about, studying law, practicing in law, and also my experience in studying other cultures and languages. And I think that from a very early point in my education, I was being trained in holding those two spaces, that dualistic thinking. And so law was law school was very, here are your facts, and you teach you the law and then apply that law to the facts. But there was no human element to that. But sitting then with the study in languages, that was all about people and people's perceptions and different cultural perspectives. And I'm so thankful that I had my arts studies to complement my law studies. I don't think I would have got through my law studies otherwise, because there had always been a real tension for me between that kind of really pure law and reality.
So you could feel that. You could really feel it. This is what I'm interested in, flow, because you talk about it. And I love that you're saying that, because most people don't follow their flow. So you've found yourself drawn into this for some reason. And there's always, I think, a higher reason why we do things. And then they've helped you balance it out with the arts so that it is a continue in your flow for you, which I really like that idea. And then you got into estate law, you say. Estate planning,
and that was something that I did whilst I was still studying. And again, very interesting. The law in that space is interesting. But something just, I don't know, it felt like I needed to have a look at what else was out there. And at that point in time, I applied for a job in a family law firm, having never studied family law, and also having never had any personal experience in family law. But again, one of those things, my mum and I have this saying that, if it's meant to be, it will be. And it just, it seemed to kind of go that way. And here I am.
And I absolutely love that, because family law itself is quite, many family lawyers find it quite a stressful environment, because of course you're feeling the emotion of all the people involved in that space. And how do you handle that?
I think initially I didn't. When you're a young lawyer, I definitely felt burnout, because like you said at the start, I was mesmerised by these families, having the opportunity to be a junior sitting in on appointments, and your job is just, to sit there and madly take notes and then type those notes up. And I just felt like I was walking into a movie every appointment. And it felt like such a privilege to know all of this stuff about someone's, very intimate life. And again, I think initially when I was squashing the loving part of myself, it was hard to hold clients in the way that they needed you to. And I think there is the risk that you become jaded, and your practice can become a bit clinical, partly from a self-preservation perspective. So I think when I started tuning in a little bit more to myself and was reflecting a little bit more on, how I want to be experienced as a person, what I want my life to look like, what I value, I was then more able to start holding clients in the way that they needed me to, but in a way that was also sustainable.
I think there's something really valuable in what you just said about that, because that's where we haven't been taught how to tune into ourselves and know who we are, even in this space. We're trained as lawyers, we go into the space and we're supposed to help these people, but we're not supposed to get involved in their affairs. We keep it clinically separate, but we're not separate. It is an energetic connection you have with these people, but it's a matter of not becoming entangled, I suppose, in the energies that they're carrying at that time, but be able to hold the space, a higher vibration, a higher energy, where you don't actually get brought down into you can hold the space for them, and it actually raises them up, and it helps them to free up that beautiful emotions they need to free. There's a whole lot of stuff in there, but you need to be able to do it yourself first. And this is really, really important, because I believe, we're all energetic beings, and if we're carrying that negative energy with us too, we get drawn back in. As you say, as you were saying, in the rat race, it's the same thing. The rat race, what I call it sort of the third dimensional energy, holds this negativity. And when we're perhaps going to church or we're on our yoga mat, that's all beautiful, and we hold all that peace. But when we go outside into the real world, bam, we can get drawn
Mm-hmm.
back in like this. And for a lot of lawyers helping a client out in that space, you get very easily drawn into the situation. So you'd rather cut it off and not connect to save yourself because you don't want to feel that negative energy either. So the idea, I believe, is to work with your own self, to get yourself into that place. And how did you do that? How did you find tuning in, or were you felt you were more naturally tuned in?
So just before we went live, you and I were talking a little bit about kids, and I said that you get sent the children that you need, not the children that you necessarily want. And so my youngest, my son, was sent to me for a reason. He was sent to me to help me stop and help me look inwards. And you know, he was he's a beautiful, beautiful kid. But as a baby, he was just very unhappy. And so when you are in a space of absolute sleep deprivation and always second guessing yourself, you know, you hit a pretty low point. And so it's really from that point onwards that I had to stop and look inward, and I'm so thankful for that.
That is beautiful. And this is, I guess, what I'm sort of trying to teach people too, is that you have a choice point, and it is you can either look inward or look outward. Outward doesn't have the answers. It simply doesn't have them. You have to reflect, what is going on with me? Why do I feel this way? And I think with law school and lawyers, they're taught, do not feel, do not engage. And then you're further disconnecting yourself from the very important aspects of you that you need to find out. Whereas a client can actually teach you a lot about yourself.
Absolutely.
Your teacher is sitting opposite you when you are engaging with a client. Everyone you meet is your teacher. Especially small children, because I think they are the biggest teachers of all. But yes, you can then maybe, you know, yes, we need some relief sometimes, and some people will go and get a pill or that sort of thing, but that might give you the relief to then settle it down, so then you can reflect. But then the work really is inner work. It is, there is no question about that from my point of view, and it is the energies that you're carrying.
And I think absolutely. That you're right. It's, you know, I think, you know, it's kind of steering away from my field of expertise and into kind of the medical space a bit. You know, I get the impression that these days there's a lot of fixes for things. You know, if you've got a headache, then, you know, take a painkiller, you know, and you can apply that in lots of different scenarios. But at least for me, I sit and I think, well, no, I think that my body's trying to tell me something. I want to be curious about that. I don't want to just mask it. I want to kind of be in it and understand it. And maybe one option is that, yes, you choose to kind of medicate or, you know, to undertake certain interventions. But doing that, I guess, again, intentionally and with knowledge behind you. And I apply that same kind of mentality when I'm helping clients think about, you know, options for what life's going to look like post-separation transition. And it's, you know, if we slow things down, you've got an opportunity to ramp up the intensity. And that intensity is not conflict intensity. That intensity is knowledge, you know, instead of, if we're talking about, you know, who's paying what or where's superannuation, I'm talking about, you know, let's just stop and make sure that we actually have all the information that we need to understand that. And it does mean that it's a slower process. And I will say to clients up front that this will be a slow process, and I will take you on this, through this journey. I'll walk with you at a slower pace than you probably want. And so if you're up for that, then I'm the right fit for you. And if you're not, then that's okay as well.
No choice is wrong, is it? And I love that, slowing it down, because this gives people the opportunity to make the choices consciously. Why are you making that choice? Is it for the, Lawyers for Love say that we've tried to give love a definition for the sake of the ego for the law, because law doesn't have a definition for love. And we say it's a state of being without fear. So if we take all the fear, there's no agenda. If you just come to that state of being without fear, you can make a decision based in love. When it moves, it has action, which is for the highest good of all in every moment, because love is momentary. It only happens now. Everything is now. So when you're making a choice, particularly in a family law situation, what is for the highest good of all? It's, if we're making those decisions, slowing it right down in love, we're making a decision from that place. What is genuinely for the highest good of all? What would that look like? And they're really beautiful places to explore, rather than self-protection, self-preservation. That's why we're saying the legal system is based in fear, and it draws people, I think, and you'll know too, when in most positions it comes in, it's position-based. You walk in, most lawyers will say, okay, we've got to defend you, if you like, and say what's wrong with the other person. What can we blame them for? How can we diminish their position and raise ours? And that's a fear-based way of doing it, rather than sitting in, okay, obviously things haven't worked out for us, but what is for the highest good of all here, so that we can all move on in a more united front, discharge those negative energies. And it's a real slowing down and considering what all that looks like. But I think when you walk in from the position-based legal system, it's set up already in that negative energy, and it's very hard to pull back from that. And that's what you're saying is, people are drawn to you because you say, here I am, this is how I do it. You choose this or you choose it.
Yeah, and I think, so there's a couple of things I want to touch on what you just were talking about then, is that the first thing is that I think training in mediation made me a better lawyer, because, previously I'd trained in collaborative law, and that was just this makes sense. Of course, why wouldn't you practice like this? But in collaborative law, as the lawyer at least, you still have your client. And when I trained in mediation, all of a sudden, and I'm already a very interest-based person, I still felt a shift to sitting squarely with two people, as opposed to sitting with four people, two clients and two lawyers. And so, I think that all lawyers, and particularly family lawyers, need to train in mediation, just to have the experience of sitting with both versions of the story, feeling like you want to help them craft a solution that meets both of their needs, as opposed to favouring one over the other. I think my mediation training really helped me sit in that love space. And then you were talking before about fear and just the shift in energy, and I guess when you're confronted with fear, you're on the defense, right? You're so protective. And I do a bit of teaching at one of the universities, and I had some students, and we were training in dispute resolution, and we got them to do a mediator's opening statement. And it was just so eye-opening. I had so many students go in there, and just really their opening statement was so attacking, belittling, just really positional. And then I had a couple of students who weren't studying law, but were studying psychology, and this was an elective for them. And their opening statements were gorgeous. They were insightful. They put on the table how they thought the other person might be feeling, and kind of trying to reassure everyone that, we will get through this. And it was at that point that I thought, how even from such an early stage in your legal career, that temptation to fight just is so real. And so kind of I love sitting in that education space with kind of first year law students to kind of plant the seed then and there that love is the answer. You know, go into this lovingly, and you will set yourself up well.
Oh, I adore that. I adore that. And I love what you say, because perspectives is, I think lawyers are very good at perspective, because of course you've got to argue both sides of the case. So you've got to see all positions. You've got to see what the judge might say. You've got to see all these positions, but of course you're acting for your client. But so we have that skill set. We have the skill set. We've been trained in perspective, and that's such a valuable tool. I'll just talk about my experience with mediation, because I just went through my own family law matter, and personally, and it was such a funny experience for a lawyer to be on the other side of the desk. Now, I was subject to this very, very experienced mediator, who's very well known, and it was awful. There was no love there at all. I paid a fortune for this meeting because it was court-ordered mediation, of course, and you hope things resolve there. And I won't talk about outcomes and things, but I thought, wow, this is what the public gets to see. And it was, the court hates you, the judge hates you, she doesn't want to write a judgment, stay out of the court, get it sorted, you're not going to win, nothing's going to happen, you're all awful. You know, that's how it just felt. Oh, I was shocked. And so that mediator came in. That was the opening statement, basically. The closing statement was at about 4 p.m. that day. It just said, oh, I believe it's settled. Well, it hadn't really. You know, there was some sort of idea, but no further engagement, no care, no holding space, nothing. I thought, wow, this is amazing that this is what the system is doing right now. So it was a great eye-opener for me. So if you're in there right now at the very beginning with people, showing how it can feel different even for the lawyer, because it does feel better. It really feels better to bring in a different position. You are bringing people together, at least so that when they're walking away with that, you know, you've got children there, you've still got to go on and deal with each other in a more unified space. Now, you might still love the other person as much as you did when you met them, but you can have some compassion for their position. You can see where they come from. Yeah, this is not what the system out there is doing from my point of view anyway, and I've had very similar feedback from others. So,
and I think I applaud you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably reflective of what I would call the more traditional mediation approach, where it's come in, we'll kind of bang heads all day together, and if you agree, you agree. If you don't, kind of back on your litigious path. My practice is very different to that, and partly informed by my collaborative training, because collaborative law doesn't expect there to be a one meeting resolution kind of space, at least in the way that the collaborative practice and practitioners work here in Canberra. You know, it's a series of meetings and it's a journey. So I take that same approach in my mediation, and I'm shifting my model a little bit to be hours are only meetings are only 2 hours long, but we schedule multiple and people commit to multiple at the start, because a lot of the mediation process is identifying what you don't know and going away and getting that information, and not allowing a lack of information to be an ongoing cause of conflict. So, yeah, I think there are issues with the traditional mediation model, and you've got to, I think, as the mediator, put some of yourself into the mediation. You've got to be guided by intuition and meet the clients where they are. And you know what? Some days it might be that they're not there and they're not ready, but that doesn't mean you then throw the mediation out. You then start to explore and understand, okay, well, today seems like it's not really working for you. Where are you at? What do you think you would need to be different to be in a space where you could start to have some of these conversations.
I love that you use the word intuition, because we're not trained in that either. And that's definitely a space where lawyers could learn to use intuition. It's such a powerful tool. It's more powerful than book knowledge. Lawyers know where to find the law. You don't know all the law. You're not meant to. It's fluid as well. But intuition is the key. It's the knowledge. I can't say how powerful your intuition is when it comes to working with people. However, we're not trained in that either. And I think there would be a marvelous shift for people to work with that.
And I think as lawyers, we are risk adverse, right? We are really good at thinking, okay, well, the worst case scenario is this, and then how do we work back from that? Inherent in intuition is an element of risk. It's you've got to kind of step outside of the known to sit in intuition. And I remember listening to, so I absolutely adore a woman by the name of Esther Perel. I don't know if you've come across her work before.
No.
In the relationship space, and she's a psychotherapist. She's brilliant. She has a couple of podcasts, and one of them is called Where Should We Begin? And each podcast episode is a couples counselling session. So you are just a fly on the wall listening to her in therapy with a couple, and it's a different couple each episode. And it's changed my life.
Wow.
Kind of coming across her. It gives you this capacity to kind of be at a distance from the problem, but start to self-identify. I think that I might be that person in my relationship, or I recognize that, and I can take some strategies from what she's talking about without it triggering me too much, and you someone having the spotlight on you. But that as an aside, one thing that she said was that, the best work that you will do will be the work that you don't want to tell your supervisor about, because it requires an element of taking a risk, and you hope that it will, work out, and sometimes it won't. But you've got to, I don't know, I think that's what's the point in being here and sitting in that space if you're just going to play it safe all the time. So,
well, this is what you're saying, is that you instead of throwing your career in law out, you thought you'd go out with a bang and bring love into it. And that's what Lawyers for Love are saying, basically. The current system has I call it an egregore, like this energy that you can't shift it. It's like turning the Titanic. You can't do it. It's just not going to happen that way. So it's set up another space and say, look, I'm over here. If someone else wants to have a different experience about your personal relationship and conflict, here I am. And you're doing that. And that's beautiful. You're not worried about the supervisor. You're just using your intuition, and you're, no doubt attracting beautiful clients that say, I want this. Because basically blaming somebody else, and this is what the system perpetuates, is getting a client instant relief. But it's not. It gives you instant relief thinking someone else is taking the problem and going to blame somebody else and say, oh, you're right. I'll validate you. But it's the self-validation. That's where what the system doesn't help is self-validation. Say, oh, okay, I see what happened in that relationship. And yes, I saw what I rejected in myself in the other. And that is why we are in this situation. So, thank you for showing me who I am. Is really some way we can turn this whole thing around, is what I see in relationship. And just to offer that alternate perspective is a valuable point. It discharges all that negativity and brings it into a more loving space. So, why not? If you're not, and this is the idea of bringing love in, it's people, I think, are afraid of the word love, and what that really means. Love is just not having fears and learning from everybody and seeing yourself in another, like you're saying.
I was listening to someone speak the other day, and they gave a definition of love, which I jotted down, and I thought I must share this with Virginia. So they said that love is the wish that all beings will flourish. And I thought, Yes, that's how I resonate with love. Is that I want everyone to be in their best space.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. And flourish is such a wonderful word. We were thinking about flourish the other day because it is flat growth, growth, nurture. It's all of those beautiful things together. And you just want people to see that. And I know that even though probably you and I feel it, a lot of people don't feel it and they don't know where to find it. And that is what I find is something else that needs to happen, is to show people, it is within you. It's just, let's remove the fears. And the fears are generated from the rules that we're given as children. Don't feel like this, don't feel like that, don't do that action, don't do that because that is not acceptable. And then we grow up with all these fears. If we go and do that, what will people say? I can't be myself because someone else will say that's no good and I won't get the love. And so that's why we say it's without fear. But flourishing is just magnificent. It's a magnificent word.
Well, I think that, wanting everyone to flourish and fear, they sit in the same space, because wanting everyone to flourish means that you need to not have fear that someone else flourishing, impacts your own flourishing. A couple of years ago, I went forth with this mantra of good for them, because I did used to, we're talking about getting caught up in the rat race. I'd see someone do something or hear about, someone, having a promotion, and I'd think, I want that, I need to work harder, and it's not helpful. And for me, at least, and I was able to shift my mentality to a good for them. It's them, others succeeding is not a threat to me, and having space for that.
And as I said, is that if somebody else is flourishing, because it's all energy, then it raises the consciousness. So if they're genuinely flourishing, if they're getting that promotion because that's their heart, that's where they are supposed to be, then that raises the consciousness. They're where they're supposed to be. May I be where I'm supposed to be, because that's our authentic self. And so many of us aren't in that authentic space. And I know many lawyers aren't either. They're not playing their role authentically. They're doing what they think they should to get that promotion or to move through the system to get the love. Basically, that's it. We are all moving toward love. That's what we're motivated by. And we think if we get the promotion, the Porsche, the partnership, the whatever it is, then they'll love me. Then I'll get love. But is that, and then many get to that space and think, oh, hang on, the love isn't actually here. What's here now? And the paradox is when you are in the space of love, you don't need a lot of that stuff. It's just you are kind of complete, but it's a very hard thing to describe to people until you're actually in the space. But that's flourishing too. Yeah, it's a crazy, amazing. So you made this decision, and how do you feel about it all? You made the decision.
I say to people when they check in and they say, how's it all going for you? And I say, I think I'm living my best life right now. And that ultimately comes from a sense of authenticity. I didn't realize the power of feeling authentic. And I'm just so thankful that I'm also able to model that for my kids as well. So, that comes down to things that I wear to work. My best mate was joking the other day. She was like, are Birkenstocks your preferred office shoe? And I'm like, yes, if it's hot, why not?
What's the rule? What's the rule about what you have to wear? Yeah, I agree.
So just kind of tuning in to me, listening to myself, and getting myself to a good space so that I can then give that to others. And you're right, you said before you must be attracting beautiful clients. I am. The clients that I get to work with, and their reflective capacity and their capacity to sit in a really hard space I admire, and it's such a privilege to work with people in that space. And yeah, I mean, I feel so thankful that right here, right now, I get to do that. You know, it may not always be like that, but that's okay too. You know, again, going back to flow, I appreciate where I am right now. I'm grateful for where I am right now, but I don't plan too much for the future. Because I think COVID showed us last year that none of us control anything. You know, you've got to be ready to sit in change, as uncomfortable as it may be. So,
yeah, I love that, and sitting on the edge of the unknown, because if you know where you're at, it means you've used data from the past, so you're not here now. You know, every moment, absolutely every moment in your life can be fresh and new all the time. It's a wonder every minute, every second. Yeah, I can't talk about that enough.
I think my you know, you were saying that, you know, when you if you've got data informing it, then you're not currently present. I live that, and I think my partner would be a bit frustrated with that, because I live it to the extent that I really can't follow a recipe. So for me, I'll use it as, you know, it's interesting, and sometimes I can follow it and sometimes I can't. But sometimes you're mixing and I think it needs a bit more salt, so I'm just going to go there. So
vibe it.
Yeah, vibe it. You know, if that's what I'm feeling in the moment, then that's where I'm going to go, because in that moment, to follow that and to listen to that feels...
It's putting love into it, because love is right now. And that's, I think, if we're feeling good, it's because we are here. We're all here right now, all of us, all parts of us, rather than why we feel a little bit off or out of alignment is because some of us are still stuck in the past somewhere, and we're projecting a future based on that past. And that's not here now. How do you know? And this is all about choice. We're using past to make future choices. We're stuck. We don't have all these options available. Yeah, there's the recipe, but hang on a minute. I want to put something else in there, because actually it's going to taste a little better today, because that's how I feel. And that's love. That's just putting love in. You know, you can taste food that someone's put love into. You can. You really can.
You can. Yes. You feel nourished. I mean, food, I love cooking. I love cooking for others. And so that's actually where I find my slow. So for me, slowing the pace of life down is really important. That gives me the space that I need to kind of, refine myself, recenter, and choosing the inefficient option. You know, these days, there's so many efficiencies. You know, you don't have to cut a vegetable if you don't want to, because you can buy it like peeled and chopped and probably already cooked in the shop. So, you know, and my partner's an engineer, so this frustrates him again to no end, because he's like, it's all about efficiency. And I'm like, no, it's not. You know, it's really important for me to have a pot of loose leaf tea, or to make my own granola where I just like hand break all my pecans, because I want that energy to go into the food that I'm making for me and my family, and to share it. And so you'll quite often find me standing in my kitchen. There's a window that looks out onto the veggie patch in the garden, just in a daze, you know, breaking up food, prepping
you know,
food,
that's a meditation, isn't it? Yeah, it is totally. That's the other word for meditation. It's just you are out of your mind. You're out of your mind and into yourself, into the love, and that's where all the inspiration, all the answers come. That's where it all flows.
Yes,
it's so present. I absolutely love that. And and to be your partner is to be so, you know, logical and, you know, efficient is so much fun. That's such a beautiful contrast.
It is. It's you know, when it goes back to that dualistic, you know, both and, you know, we don't need to think alike. You know, the world would be a very boring place with just full of people who all thought the same.
It is the whole experience of this life, and that's what I think. Even in family law, the clients come in, they want to get rid of the problem, but no, that's where the answers are. It's experiencing this experience that you are going through. Go in, experience it, feel it. It's there for you, because we're pushing away all those negative energies. We're pushing them away rather than flowing through them and saying, okay, I'll just hop in the flow here and see where I go with it. Okay, it's going to be a bit bumpy. It's a bit yuck, but it's vital, I believe, that people actually jump in and feel, rather than have a lawyer take it off them and shuffle it all around and say, try and give them that relief from without themselves getting the relief. Jump in, feel it. What's going on? Let's ask the questions.
And it's about taking that attitude of, you shouldn't get rid of a problem until you really understand why it's a problem. So again, sitting in that discomfort for longer than you want to, so that you can understand it fully. I mean, that's a huge learning opportunity. You don't want to pass it by too quickly.
Yeah. And your children, because how are you teaching them to be slow?
We don't have any screens in our house, so the pace of life is slow. We love to dance to music. We do lots of stuff outside. But we also have created life so that we've got lots of time together. And they love reading, and so my daughter is now learning to read herself, but they can sit and be read to for hours. So they're good at a slow pace. Perhaps also they're naturally that way inclined as well. Different people have different energy needs, but their energy needs are probably more aligned with mine, and I do lead a slower life with them. But it's just down to things like a proper slow breakfast every morning. It's French toast or muesli or scrambled eggs in our house in the morning, which means that we do just get to school and no one's starting work early anywhere. But that's when you get to have those snippets of conversation with them, and to start to, experience them as little beings and see their personalities develop and watch them navigate their own, conflicts, and to be with them in that.
Yeah, that's I think probably been an education for me as a mother, was problem solving for small children. Was helping them create their own solutions. I'm not your parent. I'm here to mind you, of course, and to hold space and keep food on the table and things like that. But I'm not your parent. We're all looking for our parent out there. And I think that's what the legal system is doing, is being our parent. And it's like, stop it, just stop it. Let's start making decisions for ourselves. Let's make our own choices. Yeah. And I think that's really valuable. Now, tell me, if you've got a tip for lawyers out there who want to bring love into their practice, what would that be?
My tip for lawyers wanting to bring love into their practice would be find yourself. You're not going to be able to bring love into your practice until you love yourself. And to love yourself, you need to know yourself. So that would be my tip.
That is absolutely beautiful. Well, I thank you so much, Iveta, for being here with me today. And if you want to see more of her work or contact about her, the website for her is www.canberramediationcentre.com, and it's in the description below. Please do connect with her and her methods, because they're beautiful. And I hope more lawyers get that inspiration, because I think clients will start looking for that kind of thing now. People know it's out there. We've just got to keep saying that there's love available, and you can go to a loving practitioner who really wants to hold the space for you and show you how it's done, how to travel through these really difficult times. It's not easy, but it's worth it. It really is. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And if you're a lawyer who brings love into your legal practice, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact us in the description below. Thank you once again, and see you next time. Bye now.